Greetings and salutations, Dota fans. Welcome back to our second match of the day here at the G-1 League, Phase 2 of the Asian Qualifier. Someday, I actually got that right completely. Went through the whole stretch of the actual title of what's going on without messing it up. Didn't do it that time, but either way, thanks so much for joining us. We've got Rattlesnake taking on Gizmo Gaming. Now, Rattlesnake's got a bit of hype around him, and I'll tell you why. It's one guy named Lanham. Now, if you don't remember Lanham, you ought to try to look back and think to yourself, what was probably the most fun, if not the most exciting, but the most fun match of the International? And in my mind, it had to be the big old tiny match. Me and Draskell and I should say, use proper English, as I am a communicator. But we had a chance to broadcast that. So, how about I just set the scene in general? We'll get to the picks in just a minute. Rattlesnake's going to interplay today as one of the bigger enigmas in the G1 qualification process because they're unproven recently, but undoubtedly a new team of old vets, which is exactly the phrasing that Lanham actually used in a fantastic write-up by Team Liquid, by the way. You ought to check that out. It includes an interview with him. They've been dubbed by the majority of the community as kind of in that role, a new team of old veterans. The team is spearheaded by Lanham, a major name in Chinese Dota 2, and was one of the many casualties involved in the disbandment of eHome. And he played for eHome in the International 2011 and 2012, so if you're brand new to Dota 2, maybe that name doesn't mean anything to you, but to most it will. But anyway, they're coming into this and looking to prove themselves because they're relatively untested in any sort of real competitive environment after uniting under the Rattlesnake name. Now, Gizmo Gaming is pretty much the opposite. They don't have a whole lot of buzz or hype. They're going to be coming in as an underdog today just because of the name power on Rattlesnake. But, I mean, they're 6-2 in the month of March, including 3 most recent wins over Ultimate, Mineski, Infinity, and First Departure on their way through Phase 1 of the Asian Qualifiers. So it's not like they haven't played some good Dota. They have. This is a big opportunity for them to stun the world, to upset Rattlesnake, and to put their name on the map. So both teams have a lot to play for. Rattlesnake looking to prove itself in one way, Gizmo looking to prove itself in another. So how about I actually talk about the Dota in front of us now that we've got through that. Very strong draft out of Gizmo so far. Like the Shadow Demon Luna pickup, gives them a lot of versatility in how they want to lane this. You can run those two +1 as an offensive or defensive tri-lane, and really one is about as strong as the other. It just comes down to what you think you can anticipate in the enemy's lanes and how you think that matchup is going to favor you. Puck, of course, one is becoming one of the more popular mid and off lane heroes just because of how much he gives you throughout the entirety of the game as just an X factor, a playmaker, a way to start fights, a way to pursue people, a way to add a couple of kills to the board that you might not otherwise get. And in the right hands, a skilled puck player is going to be the most exciting player on the map 9 times out of 10. Taking a look at Rattlesnake's front 3, Magnus, Clockwork, Gyrocopter, that just screams team fight. Rattlesnake wants to 5-man Dota, and chances are they're going to want to do it sooner rather than later. Magnus, once he hits 6, even in the absence of a Blink Dagger, he'll be able to use Skewer to get in and out. But Clockwork is in particular. You see a Clockwork pick come out that early with the Gyrocopter, you want to get a lot of 5-man Dota going. You want to start pushing in bigger groups instead of smaller groups. Gyrocopter, one of the most popular heroes, no matter what scene you're talking about, be it North American Dota, European Dota, Asian Dota. The hero just brings you so much. He has late game scaling like crazy because of Flat Cannon, but he can rely completely on Rocket Barrage, just as an immense amount of damage. And I really wish whoever's doing that would stop because it makes it very hard to talk. But anyway, Gyrocopter, I mean, again, he scales well, but early on in the first few levels, not just few levels, but on up, the first dozen levels, the amount of damage Rocket Barrage outputs is just immense. Maxed out Rocket Barrage will do 690 damage to a single target if Gyrocopter can isolate himself against the target. That's to say nothing of Call Down and what that means, especially in conjunction with a Magnus and a Clockwork. And already, just in those front 3, you can see the potential for team fights to just be completely one-sided. So, we're through the second ban phase. Didn't really get to talk a whole lot about that, but we'll talk about the Lone Druid and the Rubik pickup here. That Rubik really shores up Rattlesnake's potential to deal with any sort of aggression coming out of Gizmo. I suspect they're going to defensive tri-lane this. There's no reason for them not to, really. The lone druid should be soloing the safe lane. I mean, and then, well, when I say should be, that's what stands out to me. That's what immediately jumps to mind. Again, we talked about Luna and Shadow Demon. Works, I mean, Luna's just excellent in any kind of a trial lane because of Lunar Blessing. And the fact that it's a flat damage bonus and not a percentage-based bonus. That means from level 1 all the way through those early levels in the laning phase, everyone in the lane is, it's not as if it's a 10% bonus, so 10% of 35 damage. You know, it's obviously not that low, but it's not like a bonus of 5 damage. It's actually something worth fearing. So you can put that along with a Shadow Demon, a very aggressive support, and one more. We'll see who they're going to tack on with their 5th pick. But that's going to give them a lot of aggressive tri-lane potential, especially against some squishier targets like a Gyro. Gyro is very powerful early on. It can be very hard to fight into him, but he is still a relatively squishy target, has less than 600 HP when he begins, and it just makes it really hard to deal with. And of course, by doing that, they're going to give the Lone Druid the solo safe lane. That's where you almost always want to have that Lone Druid, especially when you see a Clockwork pickup like Rattlesnake has already shown us. Seeing that Clockwork, I mean, Clockwork really only goes 2 places. Unless you're Team Liquid, then you send him as part of an offensive trial lane. But for the most part, he's going to be solo mid or solo long. Warlock going to add to that team fight potential that we had talked about out of Rattlesnake. And honestly, that makes it a little bit harder to predict now. I mean, Warlock, he can be a lane support just fine. Problem is, he doesn't really give you a whole lot. He has some regen, and he can do some damage with Fatal Bonds. That's all well and good, but he doesn't have any kind of fearful stun. He doesn't have a disable or a slow, and that's why you usually see him wind up in situations like solo mid, at least if you watch North American and European Dota. And again, for those who are perhaps tuning in for the first time, I have not broadcasted a lot of Asian Dota over the last 6 to 8 months. Going back to the International 2, obviously I was very fortunate to be able to broadcast that, and I did Monthly Madness Asia for its Gosu eSports before they became Quantic for a time as well. But yeah, so I mean, it's whenever it comes to the tendencies, what I'm going to be talking about most of the time when you tune in to hear me is almost always going to be what I know about North American and European Dota. So I'm looking forward to being surprised and to learning more about Asian Dota. And I'm sure there are plenty who just live and die by Asian Dota, and I'm perfectly fine with that. But I'm sure there are a lot who don't watch as much Asian Dota as they do North American and European. So it's going to be a lot of fun for us to learn together and to see what tendencies and what differences in gameplay exist from region to region. So, well, I really do want to see if that Warlock's going to wind up as just a defensive support in the tri-lane. And again, I don't hate that. He's going to be a very fat target, though. He has already put a point into Shadow Word, so that's fairly well expected. But while we have a chance, how about I run through our lineup, see who's going to be playing on who. Lanham, the guy that I was talking about, probably the biggest name on Rattlesnake. He's going to be handling our Warlock. We're going to have Gyrocopter, played by Ayesee. Rubik, going to be handled by Sage. I'm going to guess that Sage won't stand still long enough. And the purple's always the hardest 3. The purple name's always difficult to pick out. So Sage or Sag or, yeah, something like that. Back to the Rattletrap. We're going to have Kabu playing our Clockwork Goblin, and Luo going to be handling our big old Magnoceros, setting up shop near mid, at least for the moment. On the other side of the river, we've got Kenryo playing our Puck for Gizmo. We're going to have Glaze playing our Shadow Demon. Jakiro going to be handled by Running Through the Monsoon. Lone Druid going to be played by Jing, and Luna going to be farmed up by ZGL. So they are actually going to be defensively tri-laning this. And this is what I would call a flat-out dodge. This is a little questionable, to be honest. They have the potential with the Jakiro pickup. I really didn't get a chance to talk much about it. But with this Jakiro pickup, the kill potential in this lane is just massive. And they really could have applied a whole lot of pressure to this tri-lane, just because as good as Rubik is the kind of support. He's a Scottie Pippen. He makes everyone around him better. Not to say he can't do a few things well on his own, but he is very reliant on having people around him who can execute certain things to get the most out of his skill set. Telekinesis in particular is just the single most punishing spell in the early laning phase so far as punishing bad positioning. It makes it so hard to be anywhere near a Rubik, knowing you could be sucked back into the tower, sucked back into the enemy team. And when you combine that with the Gyrocopter, the damage potential is there without a doubt, especially if you're caught out forward whenever there's no more creeps for the rocket barrage to be spread across. Again, single target rocket barrage does 690 magic damage. Now that is mitigated, of course, by magic resist, but it's still an immense amount of health, especially when you look at how little health these supports have. I mean, As an example, even with magic resistance, I maxed out Rocket Barrage, and not to say that they would be level 1 by the time Rocket Barrage was maxed out, but I mean 690 damage compared to, look at the health pools, 549 for the Rubik, 568 for the Warlock, and of course our little guy, Gyrocopter, hanging out right in that mid 500 range as well. But anyway, it obviously would have been difficult, would have been range on range, so both both carries probably could have farmed, but I'm just surprised to see Gizmo dodge this tri-lane, maybe just fearing some of the name power on Rattlesnake just a bit. Looks like we do have a disconnect. I was hoping he'd be back and in quick. Not going to be the case, but that gives me a chance to once again thank you guys for being here. And this is the G1 League, Phase 2 of the Asian qualifiers, and this will be going on for the next 6 days. I'll be here for each and every broadcast, and I'll be here to the best of my abilities and the best of my knowledge for each and every G1 broadcast from here until the conclusion of season number 5. I want to take this opportunity to thank the fine folks at G1 for giving me this opportunity. I want to thank the David trilogy over at BTS, of course. This is primarily their tournament. They've been casting it, on their own for the most part, or if not on their own, but as the primary English broadcasters. They had no problem with me coming on board, and just so thankful for the chance to get back into casting some Asian Dota, and we'll be doing that each and every day, at least for the foreseeable future. We do have a rejoin from our Shadow Demon now, so we should be able to get underway. But anyway, the tri-lanes are going to be separated, so we're just going to have solo on solo. This Lone Druid's going to have a hard life. So will the Bear. There's only he can do some cute stuff, use the Bear to try and pull creeps and all that. But so long as this tri-lane is well executed, there really shouldn't be too much of a problem. The Bear should end up killed off a couple of times. Telekinesis will make it really hard for him to continue doing this once the Gyrocopter gets his damage up. And the idea of this Lone Druid getting any farmer experience worth mentioning is basically a forlorn hope, I should say, not foregone. But at top, Luna's going to be farming her butt up. She's already got her Ring of Protection, so most likely making her way to a set of Tranquil Boots. We'll see if she's going to go with what I have dubbed the Jackie Chan build, or if she's going to do something a little bit different. Here in mid, Magnus and Puck both should do okay. Puck, after his most recent buff, really has become a decent solo mid. We are going to have another pause. Looks like a little bit of lag on the side of Rattlesnake. But Puck really does okay farming. He should not have that much trouble. And taking a look at the last hits and denies, he's actually struggling a lot more than he should against a Magnus. Magnus sitting at 6 and 5, and Puck, played again by Kenrio, sitting at not a single last hit. And yeah, it's a minute and a half in, not the end of the world. But Puck is a hero who kind of needs 1 or 2 items. I mean, his skill set makes him good regardless, but to really maximize that skill set, to get the most out of that skill set, he needs at least a Blink Dagger. And usually you want to get something up on him that's going to give him a little bit of survivability in another way, be it a bottle. I mean, obviously in mid, a bottle's going to be the right choice if he wants to go that direction. Or you can try and make your way towards a Bloodstone. And even if you never really expect to complete it on a hero like Puck, so long as you get a Blink Dagger and, say, just a Vitality booster or a Point booster, that alone helps you out with your mana. It helps you out in terms of being able to survive these fights a little bit longer. And, Puck, again, he has a great skill set for survival, but still, to really get the most out of him, especially as you begin the transition into the later phases of the game, 25 minutes to 35 minutes in that window, Puck is very susceptible to just being blown up if he's stunned out once he tries to initiate in. So, for the moment, though, still a lot of Dota to be played and a lot of things to be said in terms of strengths and weaknesses on both sides. The late game carry potential, you almost have to give the advantage to Gizmo. When you have a Lone Druid and a Luna, if they push the game extremely late, and all things being equal, of course, they should be able to out-carry Rattlesnake. But that's assuming that both of those heroes get all the farm they want, and as we can already see, this Druid hanging out right about here, and this is more or less where he's going to be. Don't know that he's going to be moving a lot further forward than this for quite some time. So long as this tri-lane out of Rattlesnake is handled, he's going to have a real rough life. These early moments are not going to be fun for him whatsoever. Luna should have a pretty good start as well, or should have a pretty good start in contrast. So, but when I look at both teams, I expect this to be one of those games that stays relative, especially now that we see the dodge of the tri-lane. This should be one of those games that stays pretty quiet for at least the first few minutes, 5-6 minutes, if not even longer. And then all of a sudden, you're going to see both teams begin to put together their team fights, or their team compositions, and begin to try and team fight and take towers in packs of 4 and 5. In fact, that's a good method for Gizmo to free some space up for this Lone Druid after this start that he's going to have, which is going to, again, be quite poor. And we even see Jing now moving his way into the jungle. Is going to make his way over. And, yeah, just going to go and try and jungle. Looks like he was spotted by this, though, so they should be able to catch him. They had a ward in place, and this is really dangerous out of him. Yeah, and Rubik's going to spot him. There's the ping. Now, where does he go? He's going to have Magnus chasing him down. 2 points in the skewer, 2 in the shockwave. He's just level 1. Telekinesis has not been used yet. Right there it is. Magnus going to go ahead and skewer on top of that. 1 shockwave will clean this up. That'll be our first blood. And that just... that doesn't make a lot of sense to me, again. You put your Druid in that situation, and assuming that in a matchup between a Magnus and a Puck, assuming that the ward spots are not going to be warded, at least the southmost ward spot, which is the hardest to face check. I mean, when you're running mid and you're worried about room control, you can check the top room pretty easily. We are going to have rotation over here. Gizmo going to look to get some payback. And there's a silence on Mag. He doesn't even have mana. So Luo, after a good play... Oh, what body blocking. Good control. Rubik's there to bail his buddy out, though. And Luo, he got away with one there. That's the only way to put it. Let himself get way too low on health. He had no mana for any escape. And you know, 3 to 4 minutes is about the most typical mid-gank timing in history. You know, if you're playing mid at a high level, you just have to assume that some kind of pressure is going to be showing up about 3 or 4 minutes into the game. And Luo really just got away with one there. His buddy bailing him out, making a big difference. Shadow Demon is going to go ahead and swipe the 4-minute rune. Gets himself a DD. And as we see the pressure continuing to be applied here, they want to take this tower. Even a Shadow Demon hurts with a DD, man. That's just a level 2 Rubik. And Clockwork's actually gonna kill Luna. I wasn't even watching. Hang on 1 second, though. Here's that rocket barrage damage we talked about. They do manage to get 1. Now they're gonna pay 1 back. And Jing trying to swing away. How in the hell? How in the hell, Kabu? What did you do? What did you do? Gonna have to go back and watch the replay. No way. Absolutely under no circumstances should that happen. I'm going to assume it was a good play, though, so thumbs up to you. Well played, even though I didn't see it. Hopefully you guys have the in-game ticket purchased for a very moderate fee, and you can go back and watch what we missed here. In the meantime, Druid does, and Magnus is actually going to get a kill. Again, that's a kill that really shouldn't happen. And Magnus should not be solo killing a Puck under any circumstance. Any whatsoever. As is, though, Rattlesnake sitting at 4-1. Taking a look at the early goal just a few minutes in, already heavily in their favor. That tower death, of course, leading to that in a big way. The experience at about 1,500 in comparison to the 2,000 gold. But with that tower down, it's now going to be on Rattlesnake to make up their mind what they want to do. Now, this is one of the... I mean, right now they're in a good situation, and we can see Ayesee doing a good job using Flak Cannon to slowly but efficiently farm this big wave out. But you take a tower that early, you usually want to follow it up with some kind of a goal. And Gizmo taking a little bit of harassment now that Luo has shown his face up at top. There are 3 heroes in range from Gizmo. If they wanted to try and engage out, doesn't look like that's going to be the case. If they can keep this bottom lane sucked back, it's just going to make life even more difficult for the Druid. So as long as they are able to manage their creep push, that's going to be an optimum situation for the Gyrocopter. Luo is just playing balls out here. He's here with Cabo. He's under cover of an Invis rune. And if they come forward at all, up here it is. Oh, he had to have come in vision there. He had to have come in vision. If not, it was so close. Hard to tell. Shockwave will be spent. Arc Boot's going to be used as well. Very good start for the Magnus, by the way. Puck is going to apply a little bit of pressure here to the mid tower, just doing what he can in the absence of the Magnosaurus. But having Bottle, Bottle and Arcane Boots, both up prior to 7 minutes. Just a great start. Hang on. We're going to have Shadow Demon use Disruption. He got spotted out and caught out, but should be cleaned up quite easily. Ice Path going to be too little too late. 5-1. Rattlesnake continues to build on their impressive early game lead. And I'll tell you why they're in such a good lead. They're applying pressure. I mean, it's one thing to get kills they shouldn't get. Getting a kill on a solo Luna shouldn't happen anyway. TP reaction is going to land. Kabu playing very ballsy now. Glies back up, and the Eclipse is going to be there. Poor Luo has played so ballsy all game. Finally got punished for it. There's been a couple of times he should have died before, and just kind of managed to walk between the raindrops. That time, his ballsiness, him and Kabu both forcing them to pay the price. Ayesee has continued to farm up, and to say he has amazing farm would be putting it mildly. He's got 50 last hits. Every bit of that is creep last hits as well. Sometimes you'll see an inflated creep score prior to 10 minutes, but a lot of times that has to do with the carry making his way into a jungle and getting last hits that way. Ayesee sitting at 51 last hits and 10 denies, and we're at 8 minutes into this game. 8 minutes. That means he's on pace to have 100 at 16 and close to 150 at 20. That is absurd. That is beyond absurd farm. But anyway, Luna will be caught out again. Hook connected and easily cleaned up. And really, I mean, Gizmo just feels a little outclassed right now. Their movement is not really there. Their decision-making is lax at best, and their execution is really hurting. 6-2. And this is, I mean, given their composition, too, they have a great composition to fight at all stages of the game, just based on Puck, Shadow Demon, and the Jakiro alone. But outside of Macropyre and a little bit of decent damage that comes off of Waning Rift, you know, I mean, they've got Eclipse, they've got the Druid, who naturally is going to be able to do some damage. But they really need their carries there. They are going to be leaning on their carries through just about the entirety of this game to really be their sustained damage output against the team that has a lot of team fight in Rattlesnake. Magnus, Clockwork, Gyrocopter, Warlock. It is so much team fight. And unless they have the sustained physical DPS, they're just going to get blown up. Here, it's not going to be long now, really. I mean, Luo's just about halfway to his Blink Dagger now. Lanham's already level 6, so he's got Chaotic Offering ready to roll whenever they want it. And the Gyro is sufficiently far ahead, and this is a situation you hate to find yourself in. He's sufficiently far ahead that even pressuring him is going to be difficult, and that is a super dead Luo. He is going to go ahead and skewer. Disrupted. Now the TP reaction's coming in. Good Ice Path. Here comes the Chaotic Offering, though. Big RP goes up before he does end up dropping. And Lanham basically cleaning house all by himself. Actually, that's a lie. Him and the Golem cleaning house. 9-3. That's a triple kill for Lanham. Oh, what a hook from Cabo! He came from nowhere. Swung from the shoelaces and hit him in the chin. 10 minutes in, 13 kills on the board, and 10 of them belong to Rattlesnake. Down at bottom, Ayesee continues his farm. 2,900 gold in the bank. It's about to get a little bit fatter as this tower not long for the world. And Rattlesnake living up to their billing. Again, a team that was expected to do quite well. Gyro has gone for the Shadow Blade. So that just screams in a much bigger way that they want to end this game earlier rather than later, which makes a ton of sense. You got a Druid and a Luna on the map, don't take the game late. Just build, execute, and win the game in the mid-game, and they're well on their way to that. Coming up on 5,000 gold, 5,000 experience, separating the two squads, all of that moving in the direction of Lanham and company. But, I mean, Gizmo, they have a pretty tough team to crack. They have that going for them. Late game, and again, this is all things being equal, and this is kind of the bad thing about the situation they're in, is you can't just assume farm's going to be equal whenever you have a lone Druid who had such a poor start and Luna who died to a solo Clockwork. I mean, that's the kind of thing you just can't have happen. ZGL has added drums and the Tranquil Boots together, so he will be going the Jackie Chan build. That's what I call it. But, and you know, probably the most typical build in the world on her. And that's all well and good. She's going to be quick. She's going to be moving across the map a lot. But they are going to be tough to crack. But they're not really in a position they can turtle right now. Not to say they can't be. This is a good way to get things back on track. Look for a smoke gank. look to get a couple of picks to try and stop the bleeding. Or at least patch the hemorrhage, if not stop the bleeding entirely. And Ayesee playing quite ballsy. He's way up in no man's land. They are going to go ahead and move in his direction. He will be able to retreat across the river. Now Kabu's got to spot Glizz. Disruptions there. And, yep, he's wisely going to pull back. Puck should have been spotted by that, so they're going to have a general idea of where people are. Up, just heard a hook go off. Ooh, nasty, nasty. Well executed. Well executed. Ayesee there with the rocket barrage to help clean that up. And, yeah, this is kind of what I expected. 12 minutes in, everybody's level 6. They are ready to fight. Shadow Blade's done on Ayesee. And it's kind of a misconception that Shadow Blade's an escape item. You don't buy Shadow Blade for an escape item. You buy Shadow Blade basically as a damage item. I mean, the damage and attack speed's all well and good. The bonus damage is what you want. Silence is going to catch Luo, and he will be hit with a follow-up ice pad. Let's see if they want to re-engage. Here comes Luna. There's the coil. And he's going to move in and die before he can RP. Call down, though, plus the Chaotic Offering. Caught 3. Just those 2 spells. Just those 2 spells took everyone down to half health. Just those 2 abilities. That's what they have to contend with. And it's not like that's a level 1 call down that is not going to be as effective 10 minutes from now. So long as Warlock continues to get his levels. I mean, he's only a level away, a level and a quarter away from level 2 Chaotic Offering. So that's what Gizmo has to contend with. They have to try and deal with that. They did a pretty good job there. They got a very good pick, and we saw the strength of Puck so far as being able to start a fight on their own terms. Kapu. Oh, there it is. There's the hook. There's the cog. Silence goes off. Can he nuke him down? He can. And that's a kill you can't really allow to happen. It was really funny watching those 2 do their dance in mid, though. Kabu wound up and canceled his hook a couple of times. In the meantime, ZGL looking to try and add to his farm as well as push a tower. Gizmo possibly looking to take the tier 1 bottom. No tier 1s remain right now on the side of Gizmo. Not a single tower has fallen on the side of Rattlesnake in comparison. Kabu's playing a really solid game of Dota, by the way. He's been hitting his hooks. I mean, outside of the fact that he killed a solo Luna, that alone is impressive. But he's been in the right place at the right time. And on a hero like a Clockwork, that's really key. I mean, it sounds really cliche and really simplified to say, well, it's all about positioning, because it is. I mean, everything, no matter what it is, be it Dota, be it another video game, or be it sports of the physical nature, what have you, it's all about positioning. But in Dota in particular, it's one thing to be physically positioned correctly, but to have the game sense and the wherewithal and the communication to almost always be in the right spot to help your team. Luo putting on a show for us, so I'll gladly keep the camera on him, just because there's not a whole lot else going on the map. But, going to go ahead and stack our Ancients for us. But Kabu, that's really what makes the difference between a good player and an excellent player. Is just not just positioning yourself correctly in terms of setting yourself up for abilities or taking team fights, but being in the right place to anticipate the movements of the enemy, and he's done a great job with that. He's gotten himself a lot of free kills because of that. Taking a look at the kills, we can see he's sitting atop the board, 3-0-4. 3-0-2 on our Warlock, and yep, the net worth, going about as you would expect. I mean, Rattlesnake, let's just call a spade here, is dominating. 4 of the top 5 farmers all belong to them. Tops on the board is the Gyrocopter, not the person you want to have as the lead farmer on the board if you happen to be Gizmo. And they're looking to make something of it. He's got that Shadow Blade 2,000 gold in his bank. When imagine he's eventually gonna, wow, Eclipse spent just to run away from a Clockwork. That was a 2-on-1 situation. And I guess he could have anticipated something was coming. This is likely to be a very dead Jakiro if they can catch him. And hook comes up a bit short, but we just saw one shot coming out of Shadow Blade. Very big. Here we go. Call down's gonna connect. Or not gonna connect, gonna be launched. Luo, face diving. And the Eclipse, not gonna do much of anything. They do manage to kill the Shadow Demon who was left behind. But Eclipse having been used by Rubik. But yeah, I mean, it's... I hate to sound fatalistic, but this is a game where Gizmo still has plenty of opportunities to try and get themselves back into it. But playing super defensive and just letting the enemy take over your jungle really isn't the way that you're going to be able to do it. Rattlesnake, in the meantime, does manage to deny that tower. prevent a little extra gold going the way of Rattlesnake, or excuse me, of Gizmo. And they've leveled off just about 7,500 gold, their advantage, 5,000 experience. We are just 16 minutes into this game, though. And taking a look at the last hits, Gyro's already up over 103, so his farm is remarkable. 103 last hits in 17 minutes is truly remarkable farm. And he's going to have a BKB soon. I would imagine that's what he's going to go with. He could do like Owie 2000 and just never build a BKB ever because he just wants to do pure nothing but damage. And that's what he's going to do. Picked up the Demon Edge. Most likely going to be on the way to his MKB. And, I mean, a gyrocopter that gets this far ahead this early and begins to fill out his inventory, especially with just pure damage items, it makes it impossible to play any kind of meaningful support role on the other team. You can't be near the fight. You cannot be within 1,000 range of that gyrocopter because he will pop flat cannon and he will hit you for a quarter of your health every single shot. That's just what the hero does. And whenever you're struggling this much, I mean, we can already see he's hitting pretty hard. 18 minutes into the game, and he's hitting for almost 160 damage. That's pretty substantial. I mean, Luna's not in bad shape. She's hitting for 120. Tier 2 bottom does drop. In the meantime, Luna will be getting the BKB, doing the full Jackie Chan. Going full Jackie Chan. Kabu picked up drums. We saw he was on the way to that. And we're going to have a skewer back on ZGL. Not going to accomplish anything, as Luna does drop. Did she? Okay, I was trying to see what she did. She just popped her drum charge right as she died. 15-5. All Rattlesnake all the time. If you're just tuning in, we're still in the very early stages of this first game of this best of 3 between Rattlesnake and Gizmo. If you're wondering who Rattlesnake is, they're Lanham's new team. And on a very personal note, I hope that in Game 2, they draft Tiny. I really, 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 really hope they do. One of the more fun experiences of my whole life was casting Lanham and E-Home whenever they played Tiny at the International 2 in Seattle just about, not quite a year ago. Or, yeah, not quite a year ago. About 8-9 months ago. That was a lot of fun. And I really, really hope that's, really hope that I'll get to see it again, just for old time's sake. Maybe I should put in a call to him. I actually said hi to Lanham. Met him at the International. But anyway, back to this game. Luna is keeping pace okay-ish. She's sitting at 100 last hits right at 20 minutes, so right on what most consider okay farm for a professional team. You usually want your carry to have around 100 if you can. But just utterly outclassed right now by the gyrocopter. Ayesee has been playing an amazing game of Dota, building pure damage now. And these two supports better watch out. Here comes Ayesee. Will not be able to make it in time to catch them. But, I mean, they just have to play so defensive right now. And they have a great defensive team, again, as I had said before. Pushing into things like Ice Path, Macro Pyre, all that Puck brings to bear. Up there's a good hook that's going to catch the Jakiro. And he's going to be disrupted out of it. But here comes the rest of his team. Lanham's there. He has the Waning Rift ready. Jack will drop. And the coil did go down. They're all holding on to their abilities, not really wanting to waste them. Re-engagement, Kabu eats a little bit of damage, but still in great shape. So they get a free kill. The bear should be killed off here as well, and will be. Fade Bolt brings it into that bear. Does he have enough to yep, has one resummon, just used it. In the meantime, Rattlesnake thought about reacting. Eclipse comes off. They should easily be able to take this tier 2. Luna's not going to be there, and she can't push nearly as fast as they can. I'm actually surprised Rattlesnake's not playing a little bit more aggressive than they are already. Blink Dagger and Mech almost done on Magnus. Blink's been up for a bit, has yet to really show it off. 4-staff, even a 4-staff done on Rubik. 4-staff, 21 minutes, not bad at all. Just about 2,700 gold in the bank of Ayesee, so they take that. And looks like they may want to try and crack this. I mean, they've got everything in their arsenal. Ice Path stolen by the Rubik. I mean, that's one of the better spells you could ever steal. So no reason not to engage here if you really want to. They need to make their mind up, though. I mean, they're about to lose a tier 2 to Luna. And they're waiting on the creep wave. Here we go. Ice Path is there, but yep, hook from the low ground, catch a Shadow Demon. will be cleaned up with the Shockwave. Still no big money spell spin yet. And in the meantime, the Tier 2 does drop. Another good Ice Path catches a couple, and there's a good coil. Here comes Magnus, skewering his way back out of the base. Ice Path going to catch one. Mech, it will be used after being freshly completed. And Luna's pushing into the Tier 3 here. I'm not sure what Rattlesnake's doing. They need to decide. Yeah, they are going to go ahead and pull back. They had such an advantage there if they just went for it. But they seem to really just kind of mill around. I mean, they had everything. They had RP ready. They had Chaotic Offering ready. And they just kind of hung around and did a little bit of damage without really doing anything meaningful. Still just about 1,200 hit points on that Tier 3 tower, so it's not like they brought that down to within striking distance or anything. And they just kind of opened the door for ZGL to get some more farm, to get himself caught up. His BKB is complete. Yep, there's the recipe, and he has 1,600 gold in the bank, so we'll see if he wants to go ahead and add a Manta next, or if he wants to go something a little bit more damage-oriented. Hell, even lifesteal at this point would be okay. But, as is, the game continues, 23 minutes in. And a bit of a missed opportunity there from Rattlesnake, who played a very dominant game of Dota, but seemed quite indecisive there. Not sure if it was lack of communication or just not really having a good grip on the capabilities of your team. They even hit a good hook and cracked the base. Now, the one problem you do have pushing in the Tier 3s at this stage of the game is almost always going to be the fact that the respawn timers, especially on supports, is going to be extremely low. And I'm going to guess that was probably the biggest factor in them deciding to back out there. Taking a look at the Lone Druid, Jing has done a great job in catching up. He's got a Maelstrom now. And it's not the fastest or the most effective Maelstrom in the history of man. But given the start he had, having it up at this stage is not bad at all. And he's going to look to put it to use here. Has it on the old bear. And now looking to take the Tier 1 bottom. In the meantime, though, Ayesee is going to get a free shot at the last remaining Tier 2. For Gizmo. So all map control utterly ceded to Rattlesnake at this point. They still have 2 towers remaining. And I made this comment the other day, or not the other day, the other broadcast just a few hours ago. One thing that I noticed, at least in the matches I broadcasted today, is the North American and Europeans seem to put a lot more emphasis on Roshan. Twice now, I feel like either team could have taken a relatively free and risk-free Roshan. And instead, they're just continuing to kind of spread the map, playing a bit of spread offense here.
Players here.
That Lone Druid doing what Druid wants to do, which is, of course, split push as much as they can. And now it's another situation for Rattlesnake. They need to make up their mind. What are they going to do? They teleport one back. That's going to be Ayesee, so he'll be able to farm. And now, maybe they're looking at Roshan. They forced a reaction. And really, a Roche fight would favor Rattlesnake immensely. They have so much AoE teamfight that, and especially at this stage, given how big a lead they've built for themselves, I'm really surprised they're not more anxious to fight in a full 5-on-5 and just go for it. Just commit to taking a battle. Just give Lual the swing away sign. Let him throw an RP and then just go off of that. They are now looping back through the Dire Side Secret Shop, maybe eyeing the Roche Pit. There is a ward here that should have spotted that. And it certainly did. Gizmo, slow to react. Are they not going to challenge this? Okay, now see, this is a little bizarre to me. They need to challenge this. This is not something they can let go. And having everyone grouped up like that in the pit is a great situation for a puck. Now they're going to hook up. There goes the orb. And okay, he does throw out the coil. But it's still going to be taken. Here we go. Here's the Eclipse. Macropyre is going to go down as well. Ayesee got it, but there's the Chaotic Offering. BKB's up. And the Clockwork landing a hook as well. One hero dropped on the side of Rattlesnake. Here comes the call down, and now there's the Skewer. RP saved. Now will be spin on Jing. So Ayesee gets himself another kill. Shockwave cleans up a third. And Puck chasing down Lanham. Lanham will be able to survive it, though. But, yeah, I mean, Gizmo had to have seen that coming a long time before they reacted to it. I mean, the ward was in place. Instead, They managed to get themselves a Roshan. The Aegis is still up. MKB plus Helm of the Dominator now done on Ayesee. Take a look at the net worth. I mean, he's got a 40% lead. He's farmed 40% more than the highest farmer on the other team. That's a tough situation to find yourself in. 7,500 gold and experience separating these teams. Good disruption bails his buddy out there. And they should get this tower. Wow. Super dead. I mean, and again, this is what I was talking about. Flat cannon, once you allow a gyro to get this far ahead, you just can't fight. You cannot be anywhere near the fight if you're a support. Hell, I mean, you could be Luna and it doesn't matter. Luna can't stand up to the pure damage output of Ayesee right now. He's hitting for 238 damage with that MKB done. And that's to say nothing of him just being able to blow someone up with the Shadow Blade. So they get the melee racks. Probably waiting on all of their... Oh, hang on, there's the hook. Hook's going to land on Jing, and the call down is here to follow it up. Shockwave is there. Coil will go down, but really no way to follow it up effectively. Luna can do nothing but stare on. Went BKB Yasha. Moving quite fast, but unfortunately just so out-farmed that all ZGL can do is move in the opposite direction 9 times out of 10. And looks like they will be looking to take another set of racks momentarily. 28 minutes in, and what has been a very dominant performance out of Rattlesnake. Taking a look at the inventory of Gizmo. Kid Rio did manage to get himself up the mobility items he really needs, the Force Staff plus the Blink Dagger. So he's been doing a good job there. Opted to go Treads, which plays into what I was talking about. You want something to give you a little bit more survivability. Treads not always the optimal choice, but given he is playing a much higher mobility build with the Force Staff and the Blink Dagger, I don't hate that one little bit. Just means he really, I mean, and to be honest, he's played quite well, all things considered. Not the best game in history. I mean, 1, 3, and 2. But that's owed mostly to the fact that Gyro and Clockwork have played amazingly. Ayesee hasn't done anything super complex, but he's done what he needed to do. And Clockwork has played an amazing game of Dota. Kabu has just played excellent. His movement, his decision-making, his positioning, all immaculate. And the way he handled that solo lane was excellent.
Boom, there it goes.
And I think a lot of this comes down to Gizmo's choice to dodge the tri-lane, to run a defensive tri-lane of their own, when, to be honest, I think they drafted an offensive tri-lane and then just pulled back on it at the last minute. I don't really see the purpose, especially after you see the front picks that came out of Rattlesnake. You see Magnus and Clockwork come out, and the Gyro. I mean, Gyro can function okay in an offensive tri-lane, but he usually beats up on he is the kind of hero you tend to send to offensive tri-lanes that, in an offensive tri-lane, to go against another tri-lane that has some sort of major weakness. Like, he's usually there to punish you situationally. He's not like a Luna, who is just going to work in that situation no matter what she's up against. And their choice not to apply pressure to Ayesee is proving to be pretty costly. When I mean costly, I mean 17,510 net worth costly. Second set of racks now underway. Hook's going to connect. That Porchukiro's been hooked a million times. RP's actually going to whiff entirely. So all Luo can do is wander around now. Luo will catch one with the skewer. Porchukiro can't get a break. Here comes Luna, wants to hook up with the Druid. Ayesee will end up dropping. The Aegis was still active, so he's going to be back up and ready to fight. ZGL under cover of BKB. Not going to last for long, especially given Rubik had stolen the Eclipse. Lanham dropping the rock, and that should just about be it. That'll be our second set of racks gone. They might even be able to mega here if they really want to. They managed to get Ayesee once, so we saw the defensive potential of Gizmo there. And a lot of that owed to Luo whiffing on his RP. I mean, you whiff an RP, it's going to be a bad time. Not going to be a fun time for your team. But as is, they are going to go ahead and rotate to the top. Gizmo talking it over, I'm sure. Trying to figure out what's wrong, what they could do to fix it in the future. 2 sets of racks down. Now the third melee racks, and there comes the GG. 26-6 in a 31-minute 20-second game. Rattlesnake, again a team with some star power, with some name power, but for the most part a big question as to if they were going to live up to their billing. Against Gizmo, at the very least. You asked Gizmo in Game 1, they certainly did. Gizmo loses pretty one-sidedly. Very well executed, but again, I think for Gizmo, I feel like they had a real opportunity to execute, to get a lot more out of their lineup than they did. They could have sent the Lone Druid solo safe lane against the Clockwork. Would have been an excellent matchup for him. They could have applied a lot of pressure to that Gyrocopter, I feel, especially with the Warlock, and that's kind of the head-scratcher. It's a Warlock. Warlock is not scary to tri-lane against. He just isn't. So why would you not take advantage of that? Oh well. Missed opportunity perhaps, but not if you're Rattlesnake. Capitalizing on what they were given. Rolling themselves to a very impressive Game 1 win here in our second best of 3 of the day. Here in phase number 2 of the Asian qualifier for G1 League. I'm Ayesee. We got Game 2 of this best of 3 heading your way next. Stick with us here on One More Game TV2. We'll be right back.